Hi, I'm Steve, Woodworking Masterclass. Welcome to my workshop. In this video, what I want to do is cover the basics of veneer. What is veneer and how do you use it? Well, basically veneer is the same as solid timber, and it's a very thin slither of solid timber, ranging anywhere from 0.5 to about 0.8 of a millimetre. Many years ago, when they used to cut their own veneer, craftsmen would be cutting it at about a millimetre or 2.5 mil thick. But now with commercial enterprises, we can actually preserve the resource by cutting it thinner, but still get the beauty of the timber. So on average, commercial made veneer is about 0.7. Having said that it's the same as timber, it has to be treated quite delicately, and there is a wrong side and a right side to glue down. So what I'd like to show is how to pick the right side and the wrong side. In other words, the side you're going to glue down and the side that stands up. Now this is important, especially when you're involved in marquetry and you want to get the same chatoyance, which is the light refraction off the timber. If you've got all the veneer laid down the right way, then that chatoyance is going to be even all the way through. But if you've got one piece laid the wrong way, all of a sudden all the job will flash except for one bit, which will be flat. And conversely, when you turn the job around, that one bit will flash and the other pieces of veneer will be flat. So if you can understand how veneer is made, when it's cut off the log, especially with a knife cut, log's there and the blade comes down, and as it cuts all the fibres at the back, and you'll notice how far that bends. Now that's a trick or a clue to how you pick the right side and the wrong side of the veneer. Pick any piece of veneer up. One way it will bend very easily, the other way there's resistance. So the part that bends easily is the part that's had all the fibres cut, and that's what I would lay down. Now what I do is mark that downside, and I use either an HB or a 2B pencil. I'll use a 2B here because then you can see it a lot better. So this is the side that bends easily, and I'll draw a pencil line across there. And that signifies to me that when I lay this veneer down, the glue goes on this side. The other advantage is when you're starting to do marquetry or parquetry and you've got a big box of scraps, if you pick a little bit of timber up, sometimes it's a bit hard to find which is the upside and the downside, but if it's already got that pencil mark on it, you're ahead of the game. So that's how you find out the right side and the wrong side. There are exceptions to the rule, and obviously if you're going to book match something, which is where you have two bits of veneer and you open it like a book, that'll give you a corresponding and mirror image pattern. But what happens obviously is the grain is running this way on this side and this way on this side. So, you know, there are exceptions to every rule. Okay, now cutting veneer. A lot of people think no problem, just cut it with a knife. That's true, but you've got to be careful. And it doesn't matter what sort of knife you use. I've got an array here. It's a chip carving knife. There's a Stanley pocket style of knife. It's just like a little scalpel that I picked up from an office supply shop. And this Stanley knife is one I've been using for about 25 years, so I'm used to it. I don't think they make them anymore though. Okay, another trick before we start is if you're using a steel ruler to cut veneer, watch what happens. If I'm cutting there and the ruler slips, it'll slip on the veneer. Here's a little trick that will save you so much heartache and so much time. Piece of wet and dry paper. Normally I use 240, but in this case I couldn't find any, so this is a bit of 400, so it'll work fine. Very thin double-sided tape, and lay a strip of double-sided tape on the back of the abrasive. Take off the paper bit. Now if you've got a double-sided ruler like this, work out what you generally use. Are you metric or are you imperial? I like imperial because they're bigger bits. Now just lay the ruler right on the edge of where that sticky tape is. And using a nice sharp knife, cut down that side. Cut down the other side. And there you have a very, very effective tool when you're using veneer. Watch what happens now. If this is the ruler's on the veneer and I move the ruler, the veneer moves with it. What that does, it prevents your ruler from slipping, it prevents your knife from slipping, and it prevents you from ruining good veneer and getting frustrated into the bargain. Alright, now when we cut veneer, it's not just a question of getting right in and slicing through as quick as you can. It's going to take time and it takes patience. First of all, I'll do a straight cut or a rip cut, which are a lot easier. But there again, if you've got a very coarse veneer, be careful because your knife blade can wander and follow the grain. That's another advantage of having this on the back, because that will hold your ruler really nice and steady. And I don't know how many cuts this is going to do. That's 3. Okay. 3 cuts and we're through. Some timbers, Madrona for example, you can do it in 2 cuts. Wenge, on the other hand, it takes me about 35 to 40 cuts. What we'll do, we'll go across grain now. Now this is a lot more difficult and requires patience. Too often I've seen people come through and they put too much pressure on the end. I'll see if this bit's going to do it. No, it's not. And they'll rip this part. That's just starting to tear out right on the very edge. And the reason for that is there was too much pressure on the knife when I came to the edge, and it literally pulls the timber apart. But if I take it nice and gently and slowly, nice straight edge, and allow just the weight of the knife to do the cutting. And sometimes it's not a bad habit to actually spend a little bit more time down this end and cut through, and then that also reduces the risk of tearing the fibres. And you can hear it when it's finished cutting. There you have it, a nice straight edge with no tear out. Another thing I'd like to share with you is a very easy jig that I find really useful. I make a lot of boxes, and in doing so I require a lot of thin strips of veneer. This is a cutting board I've made up. Definitely nothing flash. The dirt off there. Nothing fancy. It's just a bit of MDF with a bit of melamine over the top. I've put a straight edge on it. I've actually got a strip of brass, but if you haven't got a strip of brass, it doesn't matter. Just a nice straight edge of a reasonably hard timber. A bit of an old cutting mat. Again, pinched it out of the wife's sewing room. She absolutely ruins them cutting fabric, so I'll have leftovers. That sits there. Now, whatever width I want, I cut little, good shot, wasn't it? Little jigs to the width that I want. So how it works, pop your veneer in there, jig either side, get your straight edge, and again, with the tape on the back, make sure the edge of the veneer is right up on the edge of the cutting guide, and then just simply run the knife down the ruler. Taking your time, you'll find in the long run it's quicker if you go slower. And you'll hear when it's cut. There you have a nice parallel straight piece of veneer. Again, if I wanted thinner bits, I can turn these on its side. Same scenario. Put the veneer up against there. And there you have nice thin bits of veneer. If you want super thin bits, perhaps a mil, try a 5-cent coin or anything that has the same width, 2 pieces, put it down there, and you've got a lovely little guillotine for cutting veneer. The only other thing that I do, which is a bit of a tip, is I keep my knife sharp and I just polish it every now and again, give it a bit of a brighten up, a bit of 800 or a bit of 600 wet and dry, and you just give it a couple of laps. And the other thing, I also sharpen this tip. So instead of having this edge as, for example, this knife, which is fat all the way down, I just touch this up on the grinder, so I've actually got a point that comes together like that. And that's really helpful when you're guiding through veneer, so you haven't got a fat back of the blade which can split the veneer. Okay, well, I hope that helps. It's a very basic starting introduction to veneering. Later on I'll do some gluing techniques and also how to do marquetry and burning and inlay work. But until the next time, remember to keep it sharp, but more importantly, keep it safe and enjoy your woodwork.